Good morning, everyone. It is a Monday morning, and yeah, you know what that means. I'm just going to go through and troubleshoot some stuff. I'm going to see what's going on and try to plan out what I'm going to be working on all week. But wanted to say good morning, get you started, and I noticed a couple things running kind of cockeyed in the program, and that sometimes happens after I fix a couple things in one place. It shoots something else down in another place. So we're going to play whack-a-mole today and see if I can't find a couple. There's a couple errors I noticed that I'm going to jump in and see if we can't resolve them and get them updated back to the open source copy of it, and yeah, see if we can move these things forward. For starters, one of the things I found is this. Whenever I come in here and I want to, yeah, my chair's a lot, at least. There we go. A little closer. Gotta have everything just right, right? You know. Okay, so whenever you have a box in a scene or something like that, and you want to cut something out of it, then what happens is we edit this, and I can add another building block. I'm going to use a cylinder just to do it. I'll rotate it 90 degrees. Well, whatever direction that way. Let's go 90 degrees this way. I'm going to slice it out of there, and I know that it doesn't act right when we do it. And then if we refresh, it's all working. So I'm going to do a little bit of work on this and make sure that it works all the time. So let's first cut that down to about 5. And there's some different functions that are part of this, and I've had it on my mind for a little while. So let's get this worked out. Okay, so we have this cylinder that I've created, and I'm going to move that over. Oops, wrong way. I'm going to move that over to here and slide it through right there. Okay, so now we've intersected this other box, and let's rotate that a little bit just so we can see when it actually does it. We'll put it kind of the angle we're sitting. And now what happens is this. If I take this item, we can even color it doesn't matter. But I take this item, and under Advanced, one of the options we have is to merge the shapes. And when I first do this, subtract from another shape, it lets me pick shape to merge. I click on this box, and it didn't do anything, but it did set it. Okay, that should already fix it and should already show it properly. But because it didn't, we're going to look into that little process there, because watch this. If I save the cylinder, first of all, it just disappeared on me. But merged items, it comes back. So it is a merged item, and it is physically there. But notice when I refresh the page, it is cut out of there. And now if I say merged items, now it does what I want it to, which is, kind of go with a little bit of a transparency. If you right click it, you can select it. You can also select the box by right clicking it. But the biggest idea is that if it's here, once I do this, if I try to move it, notice it's now creating a second object. It's doing some weird stuff. It's not working with the original. It's now creating a second object the second I go to move it around. There's definitely some things wrong in this plot. So we're going to go troubleshoot a couple of these things and see if we can't fix them up. First things first, this is the site we're working with. I'm going to leave that open for now because it's, what is it? It is class and loaders. That wasn't used. I took a copy of it. This is the one we were working with. Nope, that one is another copy of one I didn't change. That didn't get any changes yet. And basic molds, we're good on that. I'm just trying to double check, make sure I didn't update something. And see, I remarked that out because we do not need to have physics on every single object right now. Okay, so we're going back to the core. One of the areas I'm going to need is admin editor. This is where Control F, set new mold. This is the process that it does every time that I tell it there's a new mold and I make a change to it. This is the process that updates the mold and double checks it and tries it. At the same time, I want to double check. We're building ID equals this. We're going to get this narrowed down. I want to make sure we're only dealing with one object. Make sure, see, it created 2 cylinders. I had a feeling it did that. That's another bug we have. So let's go ahead and go after both of these. We can only fix one of them at a time, but these are 2 things that are kind of an issue. We're going to take this and we're going to delete it, first of all. And that'll get us down to the root. What do we have in this area? We have a box, we have a floor, and we have a cylinder. Okay, that's the only things we want in this scene. When I make a change, we'll worry about that doubling over where it's actually saving 2 items instead of just 1. We'll worry about that in just a second. But, okay, so we have this, and if I hide the merged object, notice that it is, well, it's not quite all the way through it. Let's see that area in the back there. It stops short of going all the way through, so let's take this, edit that, and I want it to go all the way through just so that we don't have any weird looks on that. Let's go a little bit bigger. And let's rotate it a little farther. I like to kind of see at a little bit of an angle just because it'll, oops. Let's do it something like that. Okay, noticed how even while I was doing that, it actually did change this. So there is something. I think it was because of the duplicate. That's a possibility. But we'll work on that. We're going to find out why it's doing that and fix both the problems anyway. So, okay, so it has that shape in there. It is showing the merged objects. I can turn them off. It's a nice clean thing. I can even apply a texture to this that kind of makes it easier to see some of the stuff too. Change texture. Let's go with, doesn't have to be anything big. Go with cork. Ooh, it didn't apply the texture. See, we got a couple things not working here, right? So I want to make sure that we didn't just add another object here. Nope, it is a texture and it is set. Not sure why it's not reloading, but that's the kind of stuff that we're going to troubleshoot and find out what's going on right now. So we have our work cut out for us. We've now identified 3 different issues. One is when I apply a texture, it didn't automatically take. We're going to track that down and find out why. The second one is it created 2 objects when we did it. And the third item is when I first cut a hole in this, it did not actually show me the cut hole right away. It had an issue with that. We're going to fix all 3 of those items and see what we can do with it. So the first one, when I edit this and I move it, see, it is cutting it. It is changing it. So it's only a problem when it's a brand new object because it is referencing the current cutout. Notice how it's recutting the hole as I move the object because now I can make it cut out to the side. So that is working. So the in-process version of it is working okay. What we need to do is we need to find out why when I change let's track down why when I change the texture. Let's go to footpath version. Oh, see, now that works. Is it only when I go from color to something? Okay. See, the color didn't take off the texture. Maybe that's part of the symptom. When I switch this to color, let's track that one down first. We got to just start beating these down. Like I said, playing a little whack-a-mole today. We're going after a couple different processes, and we're going to find out why certain ones aren't working. Copy that. Find this. Okay, so change covering type. If it becomes an image, then we use a image and we give it a default one. If it goes to color, which I didn't even set here, anything else sets all these to this, but if the texture ID is blank, we shouldn't have had an image to preview. Huh. We shouldn't be trying to preview an image. Those are all the preview images that we show in the thing. Set new mold. Set new mold should have caught that. So I believe texture ID is blank. That's why we end up with nothing. See, these preview images just have to do with this interface over here. So it turned off the image over here and shut it off so you don't see the preview of the texture you're putting on the item. So that part worked fine. But I believe it's a problem in the actual set new mold. So we'll go back to that item. And let's see what happens here. First of all, I'm going to track down where we're setting the covering, because the covering is the texture that we're setting it to, which in this case is going to be color. Okay, shapes. This is still dealing with the shapes. Scaling offset, opacity. See, I didn't bring this up. So I'm not bringing it up there. Okay. I set the opacity there. We position, specular colors. So the color is being set here, which is fine. The material, specular color, that is not undefined. We're setting the color of the material. If its color or if its covering is marble, which is a procedure texture, then image frame. There is no image frame on this one, so that doesn't affect this. That has something to do with something else. Covering name. That makes sure if you go bidirectional but pick something, an object that doesn't have bidirectional, it automatically puts it on texture instead of directional texture. Covering name, still going through this. Did we just not handle that? Let me find out. Covering name is color, and that has to do with CSG, which is the cutting out of one object out of another. And so we did not... We're adding the mold and re-adding it if rebuild equals 1. Well, rebuild can be 1 if rebuild can be 1 right at the start here if we told it to bring in rebuild. And we did. So rebuild should have happened, which means it should have rebuilt the object. We try not to over abuse that one because there's only certain things that you need to do that with. Well, there's a couple things here. One of them is I'm going to check. I want to make sure we're rebuilding the object. And I want to make sure that this procedure right here that I just added in not too long ago isn't affecting what we're doing and telling it to rebuild or not. Because this procedure, if it passes back a value and if it ends up being 0, then it basically isn't doing it. But I don't want to just, well, see, I need to pass what it already is. If it's already 1, it doesn't become a 0. I think I'm okay on that, but I want to just double check that. So we're going to do it that way. Let's see what happens when I take this. This is just a bit of tracking down, coming up with our errors and fixing them. So if I right click that and I say we're going to change that to color, see, it still did it. And rebuild mold, it was 0. It was 0, but yet when I call rebuild mold from the end of this procedure, which is right here, I say set new mold equals 1, that should have automatically rebuilt it. Something is changing our value. Let's find that out, because that would definitely affect this process. I think we found the clue that we needed. Let's check it up here. Well, let's also see. Everywhere that it has rebuild, I want to make sure that it can't set it to 0. Once we know it needs to be rebuilt, there's nothing that should be able to return a 0 telling it we changed its mind. Rebuild equals 1, rebuild equals 1. Everything here, if it triggers any of these items that change, they would tell it to rebuild mold. Otherwise, it doesn't need to rebuild it. So that's all fine with me, but it shouldn't have done it. So, oh, right here, what is this one? CSG count equals 0, rebuild mold equals 0. That is not the case. We need it to automatically rebuild. Maybe that's where we were getting in trouble. Because it is CSG, it wasn't rebuilding, that would have automatically changed the value. Okay, let's find out. Because it needs to rebuild the mold knowing that we've removed the texture off the surface. If it doesn't rebuild the mold, the texture obviously is still there, but if we set the texture to 0, which means blank, then it doesn't know what texture to put on there, and it ends up being bad. There we are. Now we're working in color. One problem fixed. We had one line of code screwing that one up. Okay, and when I go from color to texture, notice the texture comes on, but the color did not until I click a color again. So we're going to find out why that direction doesn't work. We should get the rebuilt mold, that's fine. But see, we have a section in here that picks up the color. And then when I click on something, it triggers the color. So I want to find out, it should be in those areas, that's not 3D text. Image material, oh, that's frame only. Here it is, mold material, and we're setting the mold material based on these colors, which we just set right here. So this should get specular, diffuse, but emissive color is dependent on if it's terrain or floor. No longer. I've changed that. We are no longer doing that one, so we can clean that up. Maybe that's why if emissive color didn't go, what was the one I was doing down here? Emissive color. See, the emissive color didn't pick up. That's going to be the true color of the object. So let's try that. Just fixing one thing after another, playing whack-a-mole. Okay. Notice when I right-click the object and it repaints this, it didn't repaint the object that cut the hole out of it. That's another thing, which, like I said, and then when I click this over here, now it does. Okay, we got a couple things there. One is we can go to color. Color isn't set yet, so there was no reason to have an issue with the color there. But if I go back to texture, notice it didn't keep this color. But yet if I click it, Now it does. There's something wrong in Denmark. No, sorry, that's an expression. I don't even know where it came from, but don't want to offend anybody in Denmark. Okay, I want to know, did it attempt this line here? And I want to know if it actually picked up these colors in these blanks, or were they blank and it didn't? Because that would explain, if these didn't have a value, that would explain, let's just pick one of them. Missive red. We'll check this value here. We either have an emissive red color or we don't when that happens. So let's check that. We're finding things, we're fixing them. Okay, we have the object. When I right click it, we're going to fix that next. We'll get there. But when I do this, color is 0.59, which is right there. Okay, I'm going to move that first. Now we know color. See, watch, we should, there it is. We should get red. I want some deep red in there. Now the color, it did not change here. Okay, just note that. Because it didn't process that part again. This goes directly on the mold. When I make a change to any of these, it goes directly on the mold that I'm working on. So if I come in here and set color, it remained, and it knows 0.65. Okay, 0.65 on the color. And now if I go to texture from there, texture went back to, see, it knew the color. It even knew to set it, but it does not show it. I think what happened, I think we're rebuilding the mold. But rebuilding the mold should automatically pick up the color because we're setting it. Huh. It's a timing issue. I don't think it's a setting issue because we're setting the colors here. And that color does come up there. If I try to do something now, what else is going to trigger? Yeah, I know. If I click this, of course, it's going to fix it. But that's not taking care of that. I'm just curious. I'm going to try moving this. Color and marble needs to be those. That's the same thing I'm setting them to, but it's different parts. Oh, the iframe. Okay, never mind. I want to try putting this after it rebuilds the mold, which is rebuild mold. Happens here. That's where it disposes it and recreates a new mold. And I'm going to put this after it just for a moment. And I want to see if that makes a difference. I want to see if it's, when it rebuilds the mold, if it's just not coming in the right color or not. Because it should have picked up the mold with the color. And first thing we're going to do is set that back to color. Pick a color. We made it nice and bright red. We already know that's been rebuilt. And now when I go to texture, it saved the color. Okay, so when it rebuilt the mold, it did not know what color. It didn't set the color. So when the texture is set, that means that's a symptom of something else. This is setting the color after the mold gets rebuilt. But when this mold got rebuilt, these colors should have been set. I know I can say that many times over and it still doesn't make it any different than it is. Add mold. I think add mold to queue. Find next. Let's find with the equal sign. That'll give us the actual function. I want to double check and see when we do this. The only reason I look for that one is because it's easier to remember than the name of this one. Process mold queue, and I told it to add. One of the things it does is it does add mold, which is exactly what we just told it to do on the other line. But do we apply the color after the fact? No, we don't. So something here's the real test. We have it a shade of red, and I'm going to save it. Save box. And if I reload the screen, it should be a red box with that texture. If it doesn't, then we have something to fix. No, white box. See? There's the problem. So, as part of this add mold, okay, and I know where that is, but we're going to find in files, find all. It's in the molds directory under the, mold covering, and here it is. What we're going to do is we are going to tell it, because if it's a different shape, what happens is we have an area down here where we're telling it to complete the mold, which sets the coverings. In here, we apply the covering right. Here's our covering types. If it's texture, if it's non-directional, hidden, blah, 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 we cover all these different circumstances. We tell it what to push for materials, diffuse textures. We're cleaning off some materials. We tell it to dispose of certain things that already exist. Then here, we tell it to add the covering name. But what we don't do is we don't reapply the color if it's not null. See, because originally when I created it, I did not have the color and the let me see if do we have both. Am I getting the? We had the mold def and the mold. Mold def is this def. I don't need the. Okay, I don't need the index of the array that it's coming from. Okay, so if I take this section right here and move that to right here, we know that the mold material is not undefined, but we'll check it anyway. That doesn't hurt anything. But in here, instead of molds IND, it is the mold def, which is the one single definition file that we're sending here. So we take that. We're going to apply it to the right place here, then that will always work. So we've just corrected two issues in one. We're correcting these, because then it's going to work when we reset an item, but it's also going to work when we create them from scratch. That will take care of them all together. So we're going to jump in here. Like I said, it's a whack-a-mole day. We're going to fix a bunch of things. Anything we see, we're going to try the program. We're going to fix things as we see them. This particular case, this is going to take care of a loading issue of setting colors and textures. When I first did it, I was doing texture or color. That's what happened. And so when I got in here and I started messing with it and changed it up a bit, that's when I started noticing different things here. Okay, so that should put it where every time we create a new mold, we apply whatever color after the covering is done. So that should catch that there, and we should no longer need it here because we are applying, oh, sorry. Oh, I took it out here. Well, we do need it. Sorry about that. Let's see. If I come in here, do an undefined, well, see, no, I don't, because it is going to redraw that item. If we don't require a reboot or a redraw, then it would clip it off and not do it. So we're going to make sure that will be a redraw if you switch from one to the next. But for here, we're going to go ahead and we're going to leave that in there because that will set the color properly. And it'll make sure that if you just change the color, it does get set to the new color. Okay, now let's see. We should get a color on this object, which is red because we did store it in the database. There it is. Now we're getting the color of the item that we expected. And now if I edit it, we have this color. If I switch it to color, we still have the color. If I change the color and we decide we're going to go with texture, it preserves the texture and the color. And if you notice, it does have the contours in there. We can even, the next part, change the texture altogether and go with, let me pick something that has some sort of white to the background just so that we can tell it's applied. And see, we got that texture pattern and the color still in line. So, yay, successful. We were able to fix that, and now that works. The only thing is, as you can see, merged item, that's cut out of there, and it did not refresh when that changed. So, here's the deal. In this section right here, what we need to check is there's two pieces here. Bum-ba-da-bum-bum-bum-bum. If, and I'll rebuild mold. If we're rebuilding the mold, that'll never go to 0, so we can get rid of that line. That definitely wasn't correct. We're doing some of this stuff here, but we did not tell it to check it. Okay. Okay, on here we have, this means that it is the object being cut out of something else. So I take and dispose the main and dispose clean. CSG main, if it finds it, it destroys it. And I tell it to re-add it, so I'm recreating it right there. So that's the main object if you're doing the sub-object of it. But what I didn't check is if you are working with the main object and it has sub-objects, we're not telling it to redraw them just because this thing needs a redraw. In fact, that would need to be after this part happens. That recreates the main. If you move it. So we're going to need in here. This is what I'm trying to debate right now. Is it before or after this piece? When this piece comes in, what it is we are actually checking to see if we're letting control go to the set new mold for anything that the user needs to do for their plugin. You know, I think that needs to be last. Then they can modify the end product, but we already know what the end product is, if that makes sense. So right here, what I need to do is, based on what kind of mold this is, for x equal, is it x? Do I want to use x? I equals, I don't know if I used I yet in here or not, but 0, I less than molds count, molds length, sorry. Been doing a lot of PHP lately. So this is going to go through the whole track of molds, and what I'm looking for is if molds I is not equal null, first of all. Then next is if the field I'm looking for is, okay, here's how I find out. Object definitions, I can come in here at any time, scroll down just a couple spots here, and there's two different ones. New mold. When I look in here, what I'm looking for is, there is one field in particular, and it is attach mold IND. No. Let's load. Should be attach mold ID. Let's see. Excuse me. Okay. If mold IND is, why do I know, where do I set this? This is telling me if it's part of a, okay, so that is, oh, CSG mold ID, sorry, that's where I'm looking. If this, that's the object you're cutting it out of. So I'm doing the opposite. I'm checking to see if the current mold ID equals, going through the whole record set looking for this, and I'm comparing it to the, I believe I use mold ID. Yes, mold ID. I want to know, is it part of this particular item? So this is mold ID. Did I alias this already? Do I need to use the current set? Did I alias? No, I didn't. That's the current mold ID I'm working with. I saw it lit up right here. Nope. Okay, so what I'm looking at is this particular one is the item that I'm working with and the one I'm editing. Okay, and it is right here. Okay, so if the current mold that I'm using for has any objects being cut out of it at any point in time, then we have something there. And if that's the case, then I want to set it to rebuild. Every time you make a change to it, I want rebuild mold equals 1. That will force it to automatically cut any objects out of it because this object will be rebuilt, but do I need to? We're disposing that mold name, but are we? And we're rebuilding it, but we do not rebuild the objects underneath it until that happens. We need to change up the order just a touch here, because when we tell it to rebuild that mold, if I do it afterwards, what'll happen is I don't need to tell it to rebuild mold. I just need to check these molds here and tell it to dispose clean any item here like this, and that's by mold name. And then I need it to set this shown equals 0. What I'm doing by doing that is I'm telling it, I not only disposed it, but I told it it's not showing in the set. But because I recreated this object, that should trigger for these to be rebuilt on their own through the actual engine, because I'm constantly looking to see what's been shown and what isn't, and I detect if it's supposed to be showing, and then I detect and look and see, is it showing? What did I miss say? 8077, 8077. What did I miss? Oh. That's supposed to be a semicolon, not a colon. That'll get me going there, and there we go. Okay, so now we have this object, and there's our avatar. I'm going to edit this, and notice when I click to edit, it did not cut the other shapes back out of it. There's an issue. Let's find out. This should have triggered the item. It told it to shown is 0, which should have told it what it is. Let's find out. We're in here fixing a few things today, and this equals, and we will tell it which ones. I want to see, does it find that object that's being cut out of it or not, and then it will know by if it told shown. It might not be a number, it might be an actual text, so I may need to put single quotes around that. We're going to find out if it got that far first. Notice it cut it out afterwards. That's interesting. Okay, so here I highlight it. It's not cut out. I'm trying to trigger and see where it cuts it out. I didn't make any changes. I didn't click on anything. And mold name equals that. So it knew there's a mold name, and it's a cylinder that cuts out of it. So it told it to delete it, and it set shown equals this. I have a feeling all I messed up is that shown should be with single quotes. Let's find out if that's the case. Oh, because see, it even fixed it eventually. So let's find out. Here we go. We edit this, and no, it didn't go to it. Why does it eventually go to it? Is it if I just wait long enough? It should be like triggering that fast all the time. When I went off the scene, it triggered it. That's really interesting. And if I move it, yeah, it is moving the part. Okay, so it is. Hello.
Hello.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to take a 5-minute break. I will be right back. I'm a back. A back. Okay, so that's how I typed it. I'm a back. Okay, code page. Here we go. Okay, so just troubling shooting, troubling shooting. Okay, wow, tripping on the words on Monday. Okay, so what I'm working on is this. When I have an object and it's here, no problem, and then I decide I want to edit it and I right click it, the first thing it's doing is getting rid of the item, but it knows that there's a cylinder cut out of it. So, okay, something about when I clicked outside of there, it actually updated. Am I just not triggering the update? It's a possibility. If I do it before, does it trigger the update? Because if I'm creating the new object and it notices that there's more things cut out of it, maybe that's the order it needs to go. So let's put that before and give it a shot. It's one of those pieces where, yes, what gets cut out of it? Oh, you know, that may be the way I set that up. I just remembered. So it's not detecting it until I cut through again. Okay, so if I right click it, and no, we don't have it. Seeing if I click over here, then it does. Okay, so what is... Something is triggering this. That's telling it to cut that piece off. Watch this. Let me look for shown. Okay, I always quote shown. Okay, that answered that question. They are string values, not numbers. That's all fine. Just wanted to make sure I was consistent with how I do shown. Shown 0 means it's not shown. Shown 1 means it's in process being shown. And shown 2 means it is fully shown and rendered. That keeps it from trying to render it more than one time at the same time. So by disposing of the object and then setting it shown equals 0, it should be able to go through and actually recreate the object and add the new pieces to it when it does it. That should be fixing the problem, but for some reason when I rebuild the mold, oh, let me also make sure, for whatever reason, rebuild equals 1 whenever it finds something that was cut out of it. Let's make sure that it is rebuilding, because if it didn't rebuild, that would be part of the problem, because that needs to re-detect. Okay, let's see. Here we go. Hello, there it goes. Coming up, and we have the object. Let it finish loading. And when I right click it, no, it is not rebuilding. Okay, but we know we're cutting these out. We know we're taking that out. We're telling it to rebuild, which means it deletes the mold and adds the new mold. Doing shadows, and that's all fine. None of that stuff matters right now. That's all current. That's all perfect. Here we go again. When I add mold here, then I come through and I look to see, it's the connecting grid, CSG count, process CSG action. Oh, and it's taking mold, mold group, and mold def. That's what I need to do. Because what's happening is I didn't tell it in this process to reprocess this. And if I'm not mistaken, okay, mold group is, I think mold group's defined. Yes, okay, mold group is defined, or is it? Yeah, mold group by itself is defined. And mold def is defined here. No, mold def is this. So let's get that piece in here. Instead of that, it should be this. Okay, so what I need is, instead of that, we have var has dependence equals 0. I know, I'm kind of going with that name. Has dependence equals 1. If has dependence equals 1, then we rebuild that. Oh, I should have left rebuild there too. I think that's because you're not even going to hit that unless this is here. So we're going to make sure that your rebuilding equals 1 also. Okay, I think we have the piece in place that we need. So when I right click, here we go, right click, and we have the hole cut out of it. Yay, okay. So now if I move it up, down, whatever, it's still cutting out the part right where the triangle or the cylinder is. I can save the box. I can also show the merged parts. Click on that, and if I move that, it still cuts out of the box wherever I move it. So that looks good. We just solved a couple more problems right there. And save that cylinder. Okay, that looks good. We actually have those two pieces in place now. Okay, further testing. Let's see what we run into. Okay, so those things work. What else did we have? When I first cut something out of something, it wasn't showing. I may have fixed it, but what I'm going to do is we are going to take this and delete the cylinder. And notice it didn't refresh when I told it to delete the cylinder. There's one. We're going to fix that. When I told it to delete the cylinder, let's find out first of all where that function is. See, it redrew when I clicked it. And of course it knows there, oops, let's undo that for a second. Scroll down to here, and when I tell it to delete, that runs a process called submit mold form. Oh yeah, that's right. Submit mold form, and it's 0 for delete is the function. So we're going to go find that. Find next. There it is. And under these conditions, 0 is delete the mold. What I need to check in this area is two things. Okay, so I disposed of this mold because that's the piece that I want to delete. But before I do, telling it to delete the mold, but I don't. It deletes the mold off the screen. It deletes it out of the database, but I did not take it out of the list. Okay. Let's do a couple things. Copy that to here. This, I don't want to set shown to something else yet. But what I want to do is if this is cut out of something else, because if I delete the original object, it doesn't matter. But if this gets cut out of something else, so if this .csg.moldid is not blank, then we're going to do a couple things. The first thing is we need to trigger to redraw the first object, which I think all we have to do is set new mold 1 to trigger redrawing the new object. Then molds splice index is mold ind, comma 1. I believe that will delete that reference point out of the objects, so it doesn't exist there anymore. And that should do it. Let's find out. Okay, so we've added a piece here, and what I'm really doing is I'm telling it to redraw the mold if it was part of, if it's being cut out of something else, then set new mold with a reboot should tell it what to do. No, that's not going to do it. That's going to cause more trouble than it's worth. What if it's cut out of something, when you delete it, it edits the object that you were cutting it out of? That would trigger the piece that I need. So we should, what do we do when we click, when we right click on an object, input, right mouse, mouse right click, there we go, mouse right, and that tells it mouse right click admin, and I'm getting there. That is here, mouse right click admin, and what it does is it is pick mesh, get mold base, pick loaded object, that's the one I want. Now, of course, this is where I want it, 3594. And I'm using the same file, 3594. Okay, when I do this, I'm telling it to open mold form, mold shape, and mold group. So if I come in here, okay, it was some 35 something, 3590 or something like that. Let's see, 35. Submit mold form. Here we are. And it's right here. What I want to do is this function, but that means before I take that out, I need to tell it how do I tell it that piece? I have 3 different values that I'm pulling that are part of this base mold. Base shape and base. We know the mold group's going to be the same as this, so that part isn't too bad. But what I need is the mold group should come out of the mold group. So that one didn't really change. But to open this other piece and then delete that afterwards and then set new mold on this one, that will clear it up, and you'll be editing the piece that was the master of it when you take a piece out of it. That's perfectly fine advancement of what to change to do. But I need to know the ID where it's that. So for I equals 0, I less than molds dot, oh, what am I doing? Length I plus plus. And while I'm doing that, what I'm looking for is var D equals -1, var base shape equals, I'll just say box. It's not gonna, it could be anything, but, and var base mold group equals, we do not know at this point if it was a building or thing. Yes, we do. Mold group. It's going to be the same mold group as this one. Let's leave mold group alone. You only edit things that are in the same mold group that you're currently working in. So there's no reason to recheck the mold group because we are in that mold group. And that's how we got molds to even find out which one we're working with currently. And you're only editing one object at a time, so that doesn't break that. But what I need to know is if molds I is not equal null, first of all, make sure we didn't delete something out of there. If molds I dot mold ID equals this, which is the one that it's cut out of, then base mold IND equals I, and base shape equals molds I dot shape. Okay, so that should grab the shape. We should open it in the form, and then we should delete what it was using as the child out of the other one, right out of the actual array. Okay, let's test this theory. Okay, first of all, I'm going to reset something that I know. We have this cylinder right here. It's the top line, and I told it to delete it. We're going to undelete it just about the easiest way I know how. And this one's going to be okay. Apply. Delete date equals, I know I gotta kind of make that null. Apply. Apply. Finish. Okay, so now that's in place. It's back in the image, into the object. Let's see. And we'll watch for errors here while we're doing it. Okay, so we have this object. We've told it, oh, I want to see this because of the merge objects here. And then we say, oh, I need to delete this. So I grab a hold of it, and when I tell it to delete it, delete cylinder, it's gone, but the object didn't redraw. Oh, wait, we mess up something. Cannot read property CSG. What did I mess up here? Property CSG. Under the object, did we or did we not? We have CSG, and then we have the mold ID. So why is it every mold should have a CSG value if it's there or not? And just to confirm, under connect, when we bringing building molds, actually we're bringing them in using molds by web ID. This particular one, it does all this stuff here. And when it formats our end results, let's just cut down to the chase. There is CSG, and it uses this CSG array, mold ID in that. So that should be there even if they're blank or null. They should still have the structure there. We don't have any building molds. It's not being recovered. Oh, excuse me. Okay, why? Cannot read property CSG of null. There's our issue. I think this whole process needs to happen before we run that process, because I think we do the cleanup after the fact. So here we would still have it. Okay, let's try it in that order. That just may be the problem we had. Let's find out. Did it delete it? Yes, it did. Okay, so we're going to change that back to, whoops. Okay, fine, it's on bottom now. And this one. Okay, and apply. And you can't set a date to blank, but you can set it to null. Apply, and it's good to go. Let's refresh this page. Like I said, whack-a-mole, getting these items all beaten down to place, getting them all set where they should be. Here we go. Object is not in there. What's going on? Did I not save? Oh, sorry, we didn't get all of it. That part right there should be a 0. Apply. And here we go. Okay, right click that. We gain the object here. And notice we don't have the box selected. If everything works the way I want it to, it'll select the box. No, it didn't. Didn't delete it, didn't select the box. Wow. Huh. I set it to null. I don't really need to delete it. I don't need to do the splice thing. But after I set it to null, open mold form should have been the case, and it didn't open the mold form. Let's find out if it actually had a value, because if it doesn't, it wouldn't do this process. Let's check base mold IND. Okay, and the other value is base shape. That may be right there anyway. Base mold IND would be as if it found the mold ID equals the name of the mold that it was cut out of. Let's find out. I think I may have even written a process to do that. We're going to find out, but before I do, let's refresh this one more time. We have to tell it to redelete our object here. Apply, set the date to null, and moving right along, apply, finished, and let's refresh this page. We should have that back in place. Okay, right click this item, tell it to delete the cylinder, and IND is 2 and box is that, and it did not reload it. So it did find it, but for some reason, oh, let me guess. Here I tell it to open the mold form, but let me guess, at the end of this procedure, I must be telling it to close it. That'd be my guess. Plug in submit form and clear edit mold. Clear edit mold will do exactly that. What we're going to do is we're going to move that into this part that tells it to save it. We'll go into right here. This section tells it to do those pieces if it was frame equals -1, which means cancel. And this does it. I'm not going to clear the edit mold because I'm going to tell it to go to the, oh, I know what I need to do. Hang on. It's going to do clear edit mold if okay, that's what I'll do. If base mold IND is greater than -1, because that was our default value, which means that it didn't find anything, else we're going to tell it to clear the mold and close it. We're doing some logic here, getting it straight. That will tell it to do these two pieces only if it actually found something. If it found a base shape above it, otherwise we want it to close it and not do anything there. That should be good. If all I'm trying to do is find the IND for a mold by or that's the only piece I really, well, I'm getting the shape too. Okay, never mind. Okay, here we go. Running it through one more time. Well, that's interesting. I deleted something there, and I may have deleted the, actually deleted the parent object. The box. Yep, it deleted the box. How funny. That would be another reason why we didn't have that right. Okay. Apply. And we need to make sure that we're not We need to make sure, see, all we're doing is finding out those two items now, but we're using it at that level. That would be, we need to move these things here to this level. That way it passes the value all the way through. This gets rid of that mold if it needs to be. Well, actually, it's gonna. And then it tells it to delete the whole index. We're not using the index when we do this because we're already looking at the piece above it. Okay, so that should get us to that level. Let's find out if I did that right. Okay, so we edit this item, and we're just working on some flow things here. If I delete the cylinder, it deletes it, but wait a minute. It moved to the edit in the other object, but it did not delete our piece in here. Let's find out why. Should have done it with this. Oh, I think, therefore I am. Oh. I think this happened too quick and it switched to this piece before it finished processing these items. Well, the mold ID should have come from there. That should have been passed before it went to this. We should have been okay. Let me see if anything deleted and what deleted. What did it update? It updated the first item, which is the cylinder. Okay, so we did delete the correct item. We just didn't get, when we reset the mold, it was too fast, maybe? It picked up this object even though, well, wait a minute, why didn't it open the form? If I click it, it opens the form. And if I move it, yeah, see the item's still there in the scene. It did not clear it out. Yeah, fun. Okay, well, that's an issue. Here's the deal. If I even refresh this scene, it's gone. So we updated the database okay. But for some reason, the current item, even though we told it right here to become null, that should have wiped out that whole item. Okay, that should have wiped out the item right there. That's my issue right now. That, set that, no problem. Came over here. It did select the item, but it did not, oops, sorry, it's right there. Open mold form. So it did open the mold form. Okay. Yeah, we're close. We're close. We did get it to edit the object by putting the lines around it, but for some reason, open mold form did not completely do as expected. That should have done even more than that. 3606 is that one. Okay, base name, base show. Okay, open mold form. When I open the mold form, coloring list based on the shape, that's fine. See, all this stuff should have been set, should have known what it's working on, and it should have done it. When I right-click on something, load picked object, find in files, what am I missing? There was something I'm setting here that I didn't do. Okay, so I'm setting values there. New mold equals blank and open mold form. That is what I'm doing. So new mold equals 0. Is that part of open mold form? Submit mold form. I'm setting it here. Open new mold form. No. This one is there. This one. I've got something. I'm really narrowing down that it has something to do with this. Let's still submit mold form. Load picked object. But I only see one place that it actually checks it. It's here, and that's not even the process that we're running. That's only if we wind it back. I don't even think this is in use. Because why would it matter? If I'm only checking the object once, and it is right here, what am I doing? Shown equals 0, and set shown molds. Refresh it. Otherwise, Leo locked himself in again. Doesn't even matter. That's going to be something there regardless. Oh, that only has to do with... I'm going to just delete the name. Otherwise, it's in there and it does that. Okay, I don't even think this matters. I think we can do it without that whole piece, but we'll figure that out another time. Going in here. Set it to 0. That just means nothing for that. This... Yeah. See, that's my problem, is it should have... Open mold form, it's not connecting grid, and it's not changing the pick. So the only thing I'm doing when I right click is I am setting that to 0 and then opening this. Here, in my process that I'm currently working on, I am setting it to 0 and then selecting that. But there's something going on because... Is it because I didn't toggle it closed? You know what I could do? I could do it this way. Just to make sure it finishes the process of what it thinks it already did. And then open new one based on this value. But that clears out anything from the old one so that we're not getting mixed signals, mixed values. Because I think we're getting some mixed values. That's what I'm kind of narrowing it down to. Now let's reset our whole thing. Go over here, look at our building molds. Make it not deleted. That's what we're working on. Apply and make sure it's null. Okay, and here we go. Okay, we have the object. We have the object cut out of it. If I'm editing this object cut out of it, and I tell it to delete the cylinder, notice how it's kind of underneath that? I need to kind of fix that too. While I'm here, I'm doing this so many times, I need to... All that is something so tiny. We go to the bottom of this. No, it's not in that part. Sorry, it's in the admin menu. I want to fix this before we go any farther. Why? That's not what I'm searching for. Oh, it is highlighting it. Whoa, that's a bad... It's a bad highlighting color. I can't even see it. Okay, that's why so many people use the other stuff. Find in files, find all. Building, community, community, building, building, community, building, action, molds, molds, iframes, iframes, core, iframes, no. It's the classes, but that's not... Find the molds. I'm pretty sure that's what I had. Find in files. No. Forms? No. Find forms, molds. There it is. This is the line I'm looking for right here. And these items here. What's happening is I need, there, give it a couple blank lines so that it doesn't overlap the piece here, so I can get to the delete button. See, it's kind of covered up. So let's just fix that since we fixed it. Okay, right click here. And if I scroll down now it's not underneath there. Okay, that was just enough space to make it not do that. Okay, delete cylinder. And it went back to where it's supposed to. So we got it back to automatically select the top object. Wait a minute, it didn't open up the form. Did not open up the form on this side. It selected it, but it didn't do that piece. Why didn't it open the form? Find all. Let's see, that's under open mold form. It should have done it right there. Show that form. Don't know why that didn't show the form when it said to. There's nothing telling it to hide the form. It does go back to... Oh, I know what it is. I did see something. It was telling it to go back to this someplace. I know that helps out. clear edit mold. And then I'm not running anything else after that, right? Yeah, see, I'm not telling it to do any of that stuff now. Almost there. I'm so close. This is telling it to run it. It's telling it to do it, but there's something telling it to... Let's find this. I think I'm almost there. Delete mold. In iframes page, there is no follow-up. Oh, so there isn't. There is no process that it follows up on. Okay. So when it's coming down through here, it gets to here and it knows to show that. That should have both of those showing. So covering, see this is all part of showing it. Definitely don't need that in there. Oh, and so since that already does a set new mold and it's already doing that piece, we do not need that. Where's our base mold one? Okay. Why? Okay, well, somewhere down here I'm losing track of something because it's not open mold form. Why is open mold form here showing my base shape here? But yet when I type open mold form here, oh, it was there. Okay, fine. Got it. Okay, just going blind. And let's see, where are we now? We do not need set new mold after it because that gets called at the end of this file is what it turns out to be. So there's no reason to run it twice at the end there. The other part is because we opened up both of these, we should... let's find out what this one has. It is clearing all the values, setting all it down, close edit polls. set shown molds and mold backup equals null. Okay. Nothing wrong with that, and there's nothing in there that's going to stop it from opening again. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Because over here, when I call it here, this one isn't opening the menu option, which is already set, that I've already found out. Yeah, not sure why it's doing that, but when I open the mold form here, right here and here are showing that particular menu item. So not sure why at the end of all this something else opened it, but I'm going to test that theory by forcing it one way or the other right now. I'm just going to do it a second time, even though we already know it's doing it a first time. So let's find out. Okay, we take this. Okay, makes sense. Oops. Let's go through the process one more time. Reset the scene. We need to undelete this. You know, there's another way of undeleting, just so you know, and it actually does work. I don't know why I'm doing it this way every time. There's actually a we can test it next time. There's actually something that tells you to look for anything that it had last time and fix it. Let's see, did that do it? Did I get that right, or did it have an error? Okay, we have all the objects back in the scene. Okay, just working on flow. See if we can get this to work. Here we go. We have an object cut out of there. We're telling it to show merged objects. If I right-click it and I tell it to delete the cylinder is deleted. This is selected, but we are not going to the other menu. Somewhere in this process, it's telling it to go to the other menu item, and I'm not sure which one's doing it. Because when I show this here, that should automatically have fixed that problem. Nope, that's just hiding the menu items. There's no extra code in there. There's a little process here, though, and it's called... I'm curious. That's not what it's called. Okay. So that's not doing it. I'm trying to see where it's being called. There's a process, and it is... For example, if I click this right here, I'm telling it to, okay, admin item selected, BBAC 6. Okay. And it's right here, and it tells it to show these menu items. Wrong one. Sorry. It is back to edit. Something is telling it to go back to edit, and it's triggering this function right here. I can prove it, and that's why it's closing the menu option. And I'm going to just I want to double check, and then I'm going to try to find out where it's happening so that we can avoid it from happening. Oh, reset. Oh, there is another way to reset. Here it is. I'm editing my building. Recover deleted items. There's a cylinder. If I click that, is it going to work? There we are. Cylinder is back. Now it didn't redraw it. Okay, fine. Oh, it did redraw it when I clicked up here. Okay, we're getting there. We'll work here. Working through our different settings. Okay, so if I click on this and I tell it to delete cylinder, back to edit, it did run the back to edit function. That's why it's doing that. So now what is calling the back to edit function? About 1,000,000 places in here. And I need to find out which one is affecting me when I do this particular thing. Submit thing form, nope. Submit action zone, nope. Submit connecting grids, nope. Cancel mold or back 11. That's a possibility. And back 4, back 20, back 30, all these different ones. I don't see 6 in there. Well, let's see which ones we're doing. If this is open, then it would be back 11. Yep, that's what it's doing. I'm guessing somewhere in here we told it to do that. And there it is right there, our guilty party. Nope, that's different. Okay. We're not clicking back 11. That's not the problem. That would be a cancel, not a... Okay. Let's go back to this. There is a way to find out. Oh. There it is. We found it. Back here, after it hides the admin menu and submit menu button, we need these two things to happen, but only in the right conditions. So if I come back over here and let's get back to 3500, whatever, 3604 or whatever it was, 35, 36. This is it. Okay, so if that equals that, else this. And then copy that. And if you canceled, we clear the mold and close off those. Or if you save it, you're done editing. And this one needs to clear the mold and do it. There we go. I think we have it now. Get it in the right place. There we go. Okay, save that. And now let's reset our system. We can just cancel that. We can recover deleted items. There's our cylinder. We click it. Is it gonna do it for us? There it goes. Okay, it is recovered. Let's... Oh, now it's editing it. Nice. Okay, we did have something in place there. Okay. Okay, so we have the item. We right-click it and decide, I want to get rid of this cylinder. We delete it. It deletes it out of the box, and now we are editing the box. And I can even move it, and it still works. Okay, we're good to go on that one. Yay, we were able to do that whole process. Now if I click Save Box, we're done. That worked. Okay, let's go back to Edit. We can take that word off there that we were tracking. We now got that piece to work. Okay, 3,600 is around here. Let's make sure we're not leaving any trails. Nope, did the submit form, took all those ones out of there. Okay, any others? Those were something else that I was working on. Okay, so now we fixed 3 things, or 4 things now. And we're coming up on a couple hours. Okay, so we've done some good little fixes today. Fix the texture going back and forth to color. Fix the editing whenever we remove or add a cutout out of another piece. So if we strip track something from it, we have it redrawing it now. And finally, if you delete an item, that it will rebuild the master piece that it was cut out of. So we've taken care of all those different pieces. Yay! We've done some good fixes today. But I want to thank every one of you for joining me today, and I hope you have a great day. Make sure you follow me so that you can catch me again at another time, and I will see you again soon.